The 7-Hour War. A catastrophic invasion by the Combine so horrific it wiped out more than half the human race and conquered Earth in less than 7 hours. I guarantee when you first heard of it, you definitely thought something along the lines of, what? How? Is that even physically possible? Could we have done anything different to stop this invasion? Well, you clicked on the video, so I'll answer that for you. First of all, to clear up the room, could humanity have won in the 7-Hour War? Probably not. Even if our battered army somehow pushed back the Combine, they probably would have just glassed our planet to dust. Could we have done better in the war and gave the rebels in Half-Life 2 a better chance to win? Or, even better, potentially have gone a negotiable surrender so we aren't treated as absolute slaves? Yeah, probably. Let's get right into the video. To find out what we could have done in the 7-Hour War, we first must understand what happened and what position we were in beforehand. After the Black Mesa incident and Reston's Cascade, phenomenons known as portal storms began appearing globally. If you're a Half-Life fan, or just read the name, you'd probably guess these storms weren't ordinary and caused intense structural damage, and rained down tens if not hundreds of millions of Zen creatures like head crabs, thortgons, hound eyes and more. This definitely wasn't good for the global trout population or anything Earth-like in general, so the Earth's military engaged them. We can tell the portal storms were disastrous, as the countrysides had to be evacuated to fortified urban centres, and were an ongoing threat even after the Combine occupation. Alright, cut the sound effects. You're probably thinking, what does this even mean, and how does it specifically affect the 7-Hour War? Well, if we boil it down, there were likely dozens if not hundreds of portal storms around Earth that the Combine could use. Millions of people are dead, a few nukes were probably fired, and our armies were severely weakened by the war of Zen. We weren't even winning, it was a battle that we were gradually losing over time. The invasion itself is also very complicated and unknown. We don't know what troops and units the Combine used, how much, what tactics, and so much more. We kinda have to make a little fanfic and some educated guesses when trying to analyse what we could have done. First off, we got to face the biggest and probably most concerning problem. Obviously, conquering Earth in 7 hours is pretty fucking fast, and I realistically see 3 ways the Combine did this, and only one in which we aren't completely fucked. First is just, well, speed if you catch my drift. I'm going to use this YouTuber's video as an example. Name is NeuroNext, by the way.
Obviously take this with a grain of salt as no one actually knows the technical details of the invasion.
The time lapse is 13 minutes per frame, and as we can see, that's crazy fast. We can estimate that the Combine were in the Sahara Desert in the first frame and controlled around 500 kilometers, give or take. Over 30 minutes they expanded to Algeria, Niger, Libya, Mali, and probably more, conquering around 750 kilometers of territory. And 750 divided by 0.5 hours is 1,500 kilometers an hour. That's incredibly fucking fast. To put that into perspective, if you were an Algerian soldier about a football field away from the Combine, and you blinked, they would literally be right next to you. At that point, there wouldn't even be a need for a firefight. They could just come dump millions of disposable units to crash into you, and conventional defense would be absolutely meaningless. Not going to go into much detail on this since the Combine most likely didn't have local teleportation, but just in case they did during the 7-Hour War, well, all defense lines would break down so they could simply teleport. Nothing more to it, would be cooked. Now this is what I personally believe happened. Sure, Combine forces appeared from dozens of major portals globally, but also probably from hundreds smaller ones. This is still abysmally shit for us, and the Combine would still be sweeping quick, but at least it won't be a Mark 1 Plus and would actually have defense lines. So for this scenario, we're picking this speed example. Also, a few final assumptions for the Combine and the invasion in general. 1. They deployed billions, if not trillions, of small expendable units that we don't see in-game. 2. They used orbital bombardments. 3. They had intense ground-to-air coordination. I'm also assuming they didn't have a navy. 4. This was a calculated invasion. If anything, the Combine are logical and planned out the invasion, so there should have been some sort of warning beforehand, even something like increased portal storm activity a few hours before the invasion. 5. Earth's armies were obviously weakened. Okay, now here's what I think would have happened if Earth's armies were just a little more attentive. Remember, we know very little about the invasion, so this is just my interpretation and opinion. Four days after the Reston's Cascade, Earth's been battling Zen since the Black Mesa incident and has been steadily losing. The UN hosted an emergency meeting and shows evidence for rapidly increasing portal storm activity. This heavily concerns most countries, and so, in this scenario, an agreement is made to hand over global power to General Biggest Dickus, who, concerned about a potential wave of devastating Zen creatures, orders all nuclear weapons to be on standby, and declares DEFCON 1 globally, along with mobilising reserves to prepare defensive parameters around major and minor portals, along with fortifying key cities and locations. This really puts Earth at advantage in this scenario, as one of the biggest reasons we got beat was us being caught off guard. In a single, blinding instant, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of unknown Zen creatures burst through the portals onto the battered first line of defense. This was no ordinary Zen incursion. They were too coordinated. They expanded too aggressively. Gunships and dropships were too coordinated with the oncoming swarm. Striders and humanoid-like soldiers advanced in formation and actively fired at the defenders. Terrifying massive machines flew out of the portals, ripping into the sky and positioning themselves in orbit over major cities. This wasn't a predicted Zen incursion. Oh no, this was an invasion. General Dickus, immediately after receiving reports for the unknown invaders, would order nearly all available nuclear weapons to be fired upon the major portal storms. I don't care how sophisticated Combine technology shielding is, thousands of hydrogen bombs would kill a minimum of 1 trillion Combine globally, and delay them for at least 20 minutes. In this time, while nothing can be done for the forces near the major portal storms, other divisions and more could be withdrawn to key cities and fortifications. Minor portal storms, on the other hand, would be engaged from a distance wherever possible. Long-range houses, bombers and artillery would bombard them, while fighter jets and interceptors would try to engage Combine aircraft and try establishing air superiority. By the 30-minute mark, Earth would most likely come under orbital bombardment, if not already. Key cities would likely be devastated, and while not a whole lot could be done given this is 2003, remaining ICBMs could be theoretically fired in high altitude / low Earth orbit to try and hit the ships. I'll give this about a 5% chance of working, as the ships were likely extremely advanced and probably had shields or anti-missile defences. The ICBMs would instead be used to deny the ship space, as the intense radiation and EMP effects could damage the ships or even fry electronics, preventing further bombardment in key areas. This would slightly reduce orbital bombardment, but not by much. By the 1 hour mark, significant territory would have been lost to the Combine and all units around major portal storms annihilated. Civilians globally would be ordered not to shelter in place, but to instead form local militias / join their respective city defense / the military, and to build more fortifications. The key would be to inflict as many losses as possible on the Combine. Air superiority would start being lost around portals, hence jets would be redeployed to patrol around key areas and cities, while electronic warfare would be attempted, but realistically impossible against such an advanced army. All naval units would be deployed to form, quote, barriers around continents, providing shore bombardments and shooting down Combine aircraft if detected. To save time and effort, I'll do a kind of summary on what's likely to happen between the next 2 and question mark hours. The Combine start pushing out of their initial areas onto improvised forts and locations, facing immense casualties. All remaining WMDs are fired. Continents like Africa are likely to be taken over and cities will be under siege. Cities are heavily fortified with razor wire, machine gun nests, anti-air, makeshift trenches, and a good 40 to 60% of the population are in city defense groups manning machine guns, setting up more fortifications, all destroying infrastructure to slow down the Combine. Outside cities and towns and the countrysides, civilians are mostly left to fend for themselves via militias. And when the Combine do attack the cities, they are met with immense resistance, booby traps, collapsed infrastructure, ambushes, kill zones and more. It would sort of turn into a mini or mega Stalingrad globally. If the defense is powerful enough, the Combine may even need to destroy the city with orbital bombardment. The navies globally are destroyed, more and more countries will fall, and well, actually, I don't really know. Assuming the scenario goes to plan, multiple outcomes can happen. The most optimistic is that the Combine calculate that the resources and units that would be lost by continuing the war would outweigh the resources by conquering Earth. Well, actually no, of conquering Earth, my bad. Hence, they would withdraw their forces and also hopefully shut the portal storms behind them. Humanity is broken, but will rebuild. Most likely though, we would still lose, and after the war, face even harsher treatment from the Combine, and have the average person ever more desperate than they already were in the original timeline. So, what's the point then? Because it's fun to think about, you goof. Also, if you would be so kind, consider joining one of my 29 subscribers, slapping that like button, commenting down below what you would have done as General Dickus, or any criticism you have of my very genius plan. And yeah, see you in the next one. P.S. This video was also made on Captain Mobile over the course of 4 weeks. I hate my life.